Here's why you better be ready to eat their lunch. Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Sales Podcast. This is Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host, and welcome to the first episode of the Sales Podcast in 2019. I'm recording this intro and outro as we prepare for Alabama versus Clemson, which I probably won't watch a lot of. My daughter has a soccer game today. She's a great goalkeeper in high school, so that starts at the same time. So I'll be filming her game, probably checking in on the scores on my fancy iPhone, my iPhone 7 Plus, because I ain't spending $1,500 to carry around an iPhone XS Max. But, I digress. Or do I? We have Anthony Iannarino on today. He's a return guest, good dude. He's a sales trainer. He's a real best-selling author. And his book that we're going to be discussing today is Eat Their Lunch, Winning Customers Away from Your Competition. So is Apple winning away customers from their competition? Now, I'm knee-deep in Apple. Ain't like I'm switching to Samsung or something, all right? But I used to buy their stuff every single year. I would renew, but I'm not doing it. Our time's changing. So if you get a diehard like me that's not upgrading on time, what's going on in your market? If Apple can be impacted by the economy, or just maybe they got lazy, right? Maybe they're losing some of that spark, just making the screen bigger. I remember we had a guest on a while back talking about just make the logo bigger. No, make people nuts. So what are you doing to differentiate yourself? And can you price yourself out of the market? Can you go too big? Maybe. We shall see. But is your plan to take on your competition and truly eat their lunch? And we get into it. I talk about why selling is a zero-sum game. And Anthony agrees. If you're 1% worse than your competition, you lose 100% of the commission. So what are you doing to make sure that you get more than you deserve? And you know what? That's impossible because you deserve it all. But what are you doing to put yourself out there? What are you doing to stay ahead? What are you doing to differentiate yourself? And how can you reach these tough decision makers? And I think you'll be surprised on his recommendation. We talk about different ways of marketing, different ways of selling, different ways of prospecting. And I was happy to hear what he recommended. And once you get over the shock, I think you will as well. But as we start this new year, I brought on a co-host. So you're going to hear on this episode and the next that I'll be recording as well today, that you'll hear Kyle Sexton. Kind of sprung it on him. We're in talks for him to help me produce and promote the Sales Podcast. So he had to dial in. So working on some changes. So I've got some plans this year to grow the podcast, grow the Make Every Sale program, which reminds me that will be changing soon to, I'm not sure, it's going to be either an 8 or 10 week program. And then you'll renew each month to stay in. So if you are interested in enrolling with lifetime access, go check it out, makeeverysale.com. That's where you get 41 videos, my workbook, private group. You can ask questions every single day, and I'll answer them on a live weekly call. That's how I got really good at sales, was joining a very similar program way back in late 2005, started in 2006. It was a 12-week teleclass, no private group, no multimedia. It changed my life. I guarantee the Make Every Sale program will change your life as well. So why don't you go sign up now and start this year off right. Invest in yourself. Selling is where it's at. All right, makeeverysale.com. Now let's bring on our guest. Anthony Iannarino, welcome back to the Sales Podcast. Your new book, Eat Their Lunch, Winning Customers Away from Your Competition. Author of The Only Sales Guide You'll Ever Need. Welcome back, man. How the heck are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good, man. So we are either very bad at scheduling.
Yes.
Or we are super motivated to be doing an interview on New Year's Eve. So which one is it?
Maybe they're not mutually exclusive. Maybe we're both. Terrible at scheduling and the kind of people that work on the last day of the year anyway.
I like the way you think, man. But, hey, this isn't really work, is it?
No. Real work feels different than this. That's for sure. You know this.
No.
You've done real work before.
I grew up commercial insulation with my dad.
Oh.
And in Houston, Texas.
Where it's nice and cool in the summer.
Oh, yeah. And that's when I would work, right? I'd work weekends sometimes, but the summer, and, he was like the superintendent. So, I mean, he ran the city of Houston. So big jobs. And I got no favoritism. He plant me somewhere and go, fellas, here's your gopher.
I would argue that you did get favoritism the same way I did in a family business, which is what's the most difficult thing that no one wants to do? You're preferred for that. And,
so I learned
that's the way it goes, right?
Yep. I learned what I did not want to do for a living. And over time, I kind of narrowed it down. Okay, well, here's what's left I can sell.
I put stucco on houses for a summer with some friends, and I did the dry mixing.
Oh, my gosh.
If you've ever done dry mixing, at some point you do it long enough that your hands are literally stuck to the rake, and then you're frozen there. Solid. And then that's when I decided manual labor probably wasn't for me.
Well, we did. Yeah. So in insulation, you have your duct work, right? Like they use duct tape. Believe it or not, there really is duct work up over our heads carrying air. And you wrap it in this blanket of insulation. And then they would put this kind of a gauze strip around it. And then there's this thing called pookie. And it's this kind of like cement, right? It's like a quick drying cement paste, and you paint it on, and then it dries, and it makes an airtight seal, to trap the air in. Well, that's a crap job, especially in Houston in the summer when you crawl up into the ceiling of this building that's under construction, so there's no air at all, and you're shimmying along this thing, painting it. Well, when you're brand new, you don't know what you're doing, so it's all over, right? I would eat my lunch in a little plastic bag. I just peel it back so I didn't get pookie on the food, and just holding it like it's nuclear waste, right? Just trying to eat, and everybody's laughing like, yeah, there's a new guy. Over time, I got good, right? I wouldn't get on me, but man, for probably 2 weeks, just covered in this crap.
I've never met you face to face, and I don't get the feeling that you're a small guy that would have an easy time finding his way into the places where the ductwork needs to be done.
I'm 6'2". I was playing football. I got recruited for football. I was 220 pounds.
Perfect for tight spaces.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. But anyway, so thanks for agreeing to be a guinea pig. For everyone listening, I'd like to introduce you to Kyle Sexton, my co-host. I just dropped this on him the last minute. We've been in talks to do some work together into 2019. I said, hey, I'm doing an interview like right now. You want to hop on? He's like, yeah, let me turn my phone on. So you'll be hearing more of Kyle on the Sales Podcast and the CRM Sushi Podcast. So I don't know if he's unshaven, so we made him turn the camera off. Actually, no, we just sprung it on him the last minute, so he wasn't ready. But hey, he's hopping in. So Kyle, welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome. Everybody, thank you for having me on. And to all your listeners out there, I definitely look forward to diving in and separating some cool CRM tools on the Sushi Podcast, as well as Anthony, super excited to be listening and on the call with you. I read your book, Eat Their Lunch, and it was definitely a game changer when it first came out for me.
Well, thank you.
So we'll see how well Kyle ad-libs, which is all I do. Speaking of ad-libbing, let me drop this one on you, Anthony. You ready?
I'm ready.
It kind of sort of doesn't have anything to do with your book, but it kind of sort of does, because it's all sales and mindset and whatnot. But what do you do with hate mail? Because I got one this morning. Now, it was from 3 days ago, because fortunately for the long holiday, I didn't have to check email. And I mean, just hateful from an email blast I did. And I knew it might ruffle a little bit of feathers. I like stepping on toes here and there, but it wasn't wasn't my worst by any means. And just like, why don't people just opt out, right? What do you do with hate mail?
I start with the recognition that it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And I wrote this on the blog a little while ago. So grouchy people, the way that you know somebody's a grouchy person is they're grouchy. And that's how you know. You can look at them and go, oh, this is one of the grouchy people, right? Now, you may not know why they're grouchy, but he has low blood sugar, a drug addiction, can't pay his bills right now or her bills, whatever the case may be, stressed about the holiday season. I have no idea. All I know is that your email, and I get your emails, was not enough to cause that kind of a reaction from somebody who's just not automatically in that mental state.
Right.
And so when you see something that you don't like, and right now I've got 3 kids in college, and so they have trigger warnings and safe spaces and what I would just call a general lack of adversity, right? Well,
but this was a grown woman. This was a professional. This is an attorney. I mean, this is a grown professional woman.
Well, there's something you need to know about attorneys. I went to law school. Unfortunately, I didn't take the bar, and I decided to be happy instead of practicing law. Lawyers are by default miserable in their work. It is not at all what it looks like on TV, and I know very few that are happy.
Objection.
Object if you want to. Overruled. I went to law school. I know a lot of lawyers.
My own show, I'm overruled. Kyle, this is why I need you, man. I need backup.
Listen, lawyers are really good at one thing, and that is sorting out a mess. It doesn't mean that they're going to actually give you a clean slate at the end. It just means that they're going to try to sort the mess out.
Yeah, true. And with your help, I just smile. I mean, I just smile and think that poor person, I have no idea what's going on in their world. But if this was the thing that triggered that kind of a response, like how bad must their life be going at this point that they have to respond that way? And so point. I just think of it through compassion. Like this is a person who's really, really having a tough time because there's nothing in your email that could have caused a response like that.
Yeah. Is it a sign of success when you start getting some haters?
Yeah. I mean, you now have enough attention that you found a group of people who are now unhappy with what you say, and to me, I have a couple reviews on Eat Their Lunch. I've got a 1-star review that basically says there's nothing new here. And it's the same old B2B fluff. And I see that and I want to respond. And then I think, I would have rather had somebody say, Anthony has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to sales. His level 4 value creation is a terrible idea, and you should actually come in from level 1 and not level 4. I mean, I would love a substantive argument.
Right.
But when you have a chapter using Ken Wilber's integral theory, in chapter 5 to describe a fuller view of discovery, I'm almost confident that no one knows who Ken Wilber is, number one. 2, fewer people even would know what integral theory is, let alone find it in a sales book. So it's somebody who, what I did, for some reason, it makes this person unhappy. Well, okay. And that's what happens when you put yourself into the world. Some people look at it and go, what Wes does makes me unhappy for some reason. Okay. But you have to continue to do the work that you're doing. You're out sharing a message. You're trying to help people produce better results. You're helping them make decisions about what they do with CRM and how they're using it with programs that allow people to get better results than they could get on their own, which is why we sell in the first place, because we're trying to help people get better results than they can get without us. And it's not for everybody. So you smile and you say, Happy New Year, and I hope you feel better in the future.
So you brought up something there. Somebody complaining, nothing new. It's how do you overcome that feeling? It's kind of the imposter syndrome, right? It's like, how do we get out of our own heads and put ourselves out there? Because maybe they're right in Ecclesiastes, right? Maybe there is nothing new under the sun, but I haven't said it. You haven't said it. You've evolved since your last book. So how do we get out of our own way to continue to put ourselves out there with new stuff?
There's an interesting way to think about this, and I'm in chapter 19 right now, and there's a whole bunch of people that are in chapter 3. So they haven't gone from 3 to chapter 18 or whatever the number is.
What if I'm just reading the jacket? Is that okay?
If you read the jacket, it'll help, but
Okay.
just read Gitomer's quote. I think that's the money quote on the back of the book. But there's a whole bunch of people that haven't been introduced to these ideas.
Right.
The world is full of ideas. I'm sitting here in front of a giant library full of books because there's so many things that you can't possibly know because there's not enough time for you to acquire all that. You're trying to serve the people who your message actually matters and where they actually need that kind of help. And the good thing right now is if you're a content creator, Google helps the people that need your message find your message when they need to find it. Right. And so you produce it and you say, this is my view. This has created value for me. Maybe it creates value for you too. Right. And you don't worry about the people it doesn't serve because that's not who you're writing the message for anyway.
Right. Yeah. And that's something we all have to remember because it's, after you've done something for a while, it's old hat to you, but 48-year-old Wes has a lot of info and knowledge for 30-year-old Wes, who's just getting out there. And I remember there was something, I think it was an ad or something for Netflix or some TV channel. I don't even remember now, but they said, if you haven't seen it, it's new to you.
Right.
Right. So I still haven't watched Game of Thrones. So I guess I'm in for a treat whenever they finally put it on Netflix or Amazon.
You should remedy that. That's worth your time.
I know, but hey, I watched Vikings and I didn't like that, but I got to write more books. I got to keep up with you, man. Who has time for all that? I got 3 kids in college and 4 more coming up. There's no fun.
4 more. You know how this keeps happening, right? Are you aware of?
I do, man. I like it very much. It's because of all that whiskey on the shelf over there. But I digress. So what is this, man? Why are you eating their lunch? Why are you one of those meany, pushy sales guys? You're just crushing the competition? I mean, what's all that about?
That's probably the best starting question I've been asked about this book. And it's specifically because the title is aggressive. When I turned it into the publisher, the title was The Competitive Displacement Playbook. So that's a euphemism, right? That's the way we talk about it. I'm not eating their lunch. It's a competitive displacement. That sounds neutral.
Hold on. I'm writing the competitive displacement what?
Playbook.
Playbook. All right.
And then the publisher got it and they're like, yeah, no. No. And I've never gotten to name a book so far. But the concept is that, there's 2 books behind my shoulder here called Blue Ocean Strategy and Blue Ocean Shift, which is be Airbnb, be Uber, create a space where you have no competition, where you can just dominate and you own that space of the ocean. There's no blood there because there's no sharks, fighting each other and making the water red. Well, for most of us, we have no idea, what that even feels like. I've never worked in an industry where there wasn't massive competition. And as a rep, what are you going to do? You're going to go like, what we should do? We should have a product so good there's no competition. Yeah. And then your executive leadership's going to say, that's a great idea. I mean, as soon as you come up with that in the insurance business or in
as soon as they get that, they don't need a salesperson.
Very nice idea, right? You don't need a salesperson if you can build enough demand because what you have is so unique. But most of us live in a world where winning means we have to take our dream customer away from our competitor. And that's a process that we don't acknowledge. And we don't even like to talk about competition anymore. And you and I started this conversation talking about, I've got 3 kids in college too. They have trigger warnings and safe spaces and anything to protect them from adversity. But then you get out into the real world and it's actually a competition and you don't get a trophy for playing. You actually lose. You lose the client or you lose the deal or you lose a contest. And that's the reality of how competition works. And competition breeds excellence. It makes people have to adjust what they're doing and create greater value and come up with new products. But we haven't really had that conversation about sales post Glengarry Glen Ross, where, now we're kinder and gentler. We're certainly way more consultative, but you do have to remember that it is a contest and somebody wins a competition and somebody loses or everybody else loses that competition. And I think we have to look at that and say, how do you go about doing that work with honor, with integrity, with a set of values that says, I'm not going to do anything that's lacking in integrity or anything that would destroy my future relationship with a client or do anything to diminish my character.
Yeah, I had a post. I teach it in my training that I say selling is a zero-sum game.
It's a zero-sum game.
People, what? What about win-win? I'm like, I'm not saying you're ripping off your customer,
Right.
but at least like in the Masters golf tournament, if I come in second, I still get $800,000. If I just make the cut, if I'm one of the top 70 players, I make a few grand. In sales, if I am 1% worse, I get zero.
Right.
I get a 100% cut in pay. And so we got to look at every angle.
Well, the difference is in golf, the number two, they just had that contest with Tiger and who did he play?
Phil Mickelson.
Yeah, Mickelson. So, the number two guy draws a very big crowd. I mean, you have to pay to have them there, but in sales, it doesn't work that way. You don't get paid for playing at all. You only get paid for winning. And that's the difference.
So I love it how you cut to the chase and say, boom, chapter 1, you are the value proposition. And I think, does it just take a while to internalize that? Because we think we got to have better speeds and feeds, more blinky blue lights. It's got to be lighter, less power consumption, blah, 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 instead of realizing the customer's really buying us.
Well, it's easy to say it's my company and the company is the value proposition, or it's our product and the product is the value proposition, or it's the way that we deal with service and support and the experience. That's the value proposition. Because if that's true, then when I lose, it wasn't me.
Right.
It was the company lost. The product wasn't good enough. Our pricing was too high. I'm a good person. I'm doing really good work. I'm a good salesperson. And now it's not me, it's something else. But when you realize, and I realized this about myself very, very recently, at some point when I was a kid, I'm maybe 25, I'm in sales, and I'm inside the Limited Brands distribution center. There's two companies that both own this account, and one measures their revenue in both measure their revenue in billions. One's about 2 billion, one's about 4 billion. And my company's doing 3 million in annual revenue. So I'm completely outgunned. And at some point, we're all in a meeting together as they prepare for their peak season use of temporary staffing. And I look across the table and I realize I don't have to beat those companies. I only have to beat these two guys. I only have to beat these two guys. That's all I'm up against. And I can be a better salesperson than they are. And I got the idea, like, wait, it's not, doesn't have anything to do with that. It's who do they trust? Who are they going to bring in to be a partner with them? And literally that first year I came in as a backup. The next year I was a primary. And the year after that, I owned the entire business. And I took all of it away from everyone. And that's possible when you realize it's a contest to see who can create the greater value for the client. That's the contest. So when you recognize they're looking at you to say, are you going to be able to create greater value than these other people? It doesn't have anything to do with your company or your product. I sold temporary staffing. I had the same temporary pool that everybody else had. Like, how am I going to say that my temp pool is any different? And sophisticated buyers knew that already. So you have to understand what they're making a decision on is you. And if CEB, now part of Gartner, is right, and you get about maybe 6 to 7% of the client's total time as they evaluate decisions like this, you got to be on your game because you are the value proposition. You're what they're making a decision based on.
Do you think it's easier now in today's business climate and technology for the little guy to steal business from the big guys?
Well, I think it's a lot easier if you have an approach, what I've laid out in the book. I mean, so you're trying to create value. So if you have insights, if you have ideas, if you have a set of experiences, if you have a way of looking at things that allows people to make better decisions and better choices, something I would call business acumen and situational knowledge, the barrier now to share that information is gone. There's zero barrier between you and your customer in sharing information through blog posts, sending people information on LinkedIn, email. You just have so much access to be able to share those ideas and insights with people. And in the book, I call it capturing mindshare. Well, if you have the ability to capture mind share, first you have to have an opinion about things, and you have to have certain views and values that you think are important. But the barriers are far, far easier to deal with than they were in the past. I mean, in the past, and you're a relatively old man, Wes, at 48, a few years behind me. No gray hair, though.
Oh, I got gray hair, brother. Don't make me zoom in.
I mean, in the world that I grew up in, the leads were a phone book. I mean, you didn't have on LinkedIn, your dream client, the contact typed in everything they want you to know about them themselves and made it public for you to see. That's pretty handy. I would have loved to have something like that when I started selling. But you're going through business journals just trying to find somebody's name because there was something that they got promoted and you found there's a new stakeholder in your dream client company, but it was difficult. It's much easier now.
It isn't there. Well, there's trade-offs, right? It is easier. So now every Tom, Dick, and Harry, everybody from Asia, Canada, Mexico, South America, and next door is messaging that same person. I mean, like personally, I am turned off on LinkedIn right now. I get so many requests, so many form letters. It's overwhelming to the point where it's like, I think the phone's working better now than ever because it's so everybody's afraid of the phone. They're trying to send LinkedIn messages.
The phone is better than ever. There's no doubt about it. I have a romantic attachment to the phone. My mom made cold calls to take care of her 4 kids that she was raising by herself, and her cold calling built a $50 million business, that sustains decades. So I have a very strong attachment to that. But when you send something on LinkedIn, to your point, there's no value in that pitch letter that people paste in that says, Wes, I noticed that you care about CRM, and your note probably sounds like this. We have a CRM that we think you'd be interested in looking at. Like, you're like, did you read anything about me before you sent that? And the answer is no.
Nope.
It says CRM, so we're going to pitch you a CRM, and there's no value creation. So it's easy to distinguish yourself from that group of people because they don't create any value in their messaging. There's nothing there where you go, that's a really interesting insight, or we hadn't seen this data this kind of way, and that's unique and it's worth having a conversation about. There's never anything like that in the LinkedIn pitch.
Yeah. But it's hard.
Can I interject?
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
Yep.
I was just going to say, Anthony, I love the stuff that you're sharing. I can clearly see you've been a study of some of the old school copywriters and salesmen, even back to like NCR days and those guys. If I could play devil's advocate for a second, what do you say to the person that says, but my business is different? How do you handle that person?
I normally just ask them to explain to me all the differences. And then they normally say things like, well, there was a recession and a lot of people in our market now are more concerned about price, and it's very hard to get the key stakeholders on a phone call. And then I say, please go on, they look at us like we're a commodity and they don't really see our differentiation as being valuable. And I say, please continue. And until they run out of things that sound just like the same things that everybody else is going through. And the fact of the matter is that there are systemic shifts that are impacting everyone. And some of these, I would call them tectonic shifts. I mean, the ground is moving underneath us, have different impacts on different kind of industries. And your business is probably not very much different than another business, especially not one in your same category. So the challenges that we have tend to also be systemic. Why is it hard to get a key stakeholder to agree to a meeting? Because every salesperson before you for the last 12 months has walked in and said, what's keeping you up at night? And so now their guard's up and they're going, wait, I don't hear any value. There's no value trade. So you're going to come in and tell me about you and your company and your products. And then you're going to ask me if I have any pain points that you can focus on. Well, I've done that a whole bunch of times and it's not a great experience for me. But you have to look at this and say, if there is truly a difference, and there certainly is differences between industries. I mean, you can't say that what's going on in healthcare is the same as what's going on in fintech. I mean, these are two different categories, but there's big trends that cause everybody in the industry to experience the same thing at the same time.
Yeah. Humans are humans, huh?
They tend to be. It's I'll go back to my premise. The first time I showed up at Ireland, they said, well, you have to understand how Ireland's different. And I said, well, please explain that. Like, we had a big recession. A lot of people got hurt. Businesses closed. I'm like, okay, please go on. Yeah, we did too. We had the same thing. And humans tend to be human everywhere on earth.
Crazy how that works out, huh? So I love, so you say chapter 5, helping your dream clients discover something about themselves. What is implicit just in the title alone is the salesperson showing up as a consultant, asking questions versus pitching and blabbing the whole time. Why is that so hard for people to understand that's the role? Whereas most people, they just show up with a PowerPoint and brochures and a demo, and they just talk and talk and talk and talk. Why is that still so prevalent?
The thing that we've known this for a long time now. Why change? Why now? Why us? I don't know who came up with that, but it's why change first. So when you show up and you say, we have a great product. Yeah, we're using a product that looks just like yours. Well, our product's better in this way and that way. Yeah, but the switching costs don't even make sense. I mean, there's no way for you to create even greater value with the same product I'm already getting from somebody that looks like you. So you have to start with why change. And if the client thought that they needed to change, they'd already be pursuing change.
Right.
But when you're displacing a competitor, you're trying to steal somebody's customer, they don't believe that they have to change. So you have to help them discover something about themselves where they go, wait a second, this is a bigger problem than I thought it was. We weren't aware of some of these things that were going on or why we're struggling to get the results we are. And now I can open up a conversation now that you discovered something about yourself to say, okay, if it makes sense, if this is true, then what should we do about it? Now we can start having the conversation about, is there something that we should be doing? And in the second chapter on Mindshare, I share a lot of sort of facts and statistics. And when you think about something like 11,000 baby boomers retiring every day in the United States, and that's the number, it's 11,000 a day.
Good grief.
That's 4.3 million a year. It's going to take 19 years for them to be completely retired, this whole generation, because it's the largest generation of Americans. Then how are you going to find the talent you need when people don't want the jobs that you have people retiring out of, number one, or they don't have the skills for those jobs, or they just have a man bun and a giant, well-oiled beard, and they think they should be able to bring their parrot to work and have a pool table and a ping pong table in the break room. The preference,
foosball.
Or foosball, which I was pretty good at. And we used to have one at the skating rink. I was fairly dangerous at the foos. But so when you start sharing that, so what's your strategy to acquire the talent you need? How are you going to skill them up? Then people are like, we didn't even know why we were struggling. And second off, we haven't even had this conversation internally. Now you've discovered something about yourself. Wait, we're not dealing with these issues the right way. Now we have a chance to create an opportunity for displacement.
I always talk about saying our job in sales is hurt and rescue. Right? We got to bubble something up because most people, they're happy when the phone rings. Hey, I got a Bluebird. I got this opportunity. They want me to do a quote. I got an RFP, an RFI, an RFQ. They don't realize how dangerous that is, right? Somebody else has already engineered the need and the pain, and you're just one of 2 or 3 or 33 quoting on that. Why do people still not realize that? We got to go in and stir things up instead of just respond to the need.
Well, I have a method for doing that with RFPs. I read the RFP completely from end to end, and then I call somebody and say, I didn't get a form for the no bid, but the way that this is written, there's no way that you're going to get the results that you're capable of or that you should be expecting from this. Can you send me a form so that I can tell you why we're no bid on this? And then they're curious. And they're like, so what's wrong with the RFP? And like, well, first off, the question that you're starting with isn't the right question to start with. So even if I give you my best reply to this, it's not going to make any sense based on how you laid this out. And you start getting into a conversation, because what you have to do is move them back to discovery, where they discover something about themselves. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of people that send you an RFP aren't subject matter experts at all.
Right.
They're actually transacting. And when you call and say, like I did when I was in staffing, I would call and say, I'm looking at your recommended pay rates and you're approximately 200% behind the market. There's no one that's going to be able to fill these orders. And I'm going to be a no bid on this. And then they're like, well, how did you come up with that data? Where's that from? And well, salary.com, Bureau of Labor Statistics in our own database of clients. Could you share that with us? And then now we're having a conversation. But we don't really have a format for sharing that with you, Wes. But, if you want to have a meeting, we'll share with you what our recommendations are. Now I've moved back up to the top of the process again. So if you're going to play, you might as well play, right?
Right.
Don't just turn something in, play. Pull yourself out of the box. Be combative and argumentative enough to get some attention. So somebody goes, wait a second, we may be doing something wrong here. Wait, right. You just discovered something about yourself. So when you discovered we may be doing something wrong, now again, I get an opportunity to start inserting situational knowledge and experience and business acumen to help shape it. Somebody's going to shape it.
Yeah.
I like it when it's me.
I've always equated it to dating. I've got a sales pipeline picture and talk about, prospect and qualify and blah, 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 blah. But I also equate it to dating, take a shower, right? Put on clean clothes, put on deodorant, ask her to dance, ask for her number, ask her out on a date. It goes through stages, but just like dating, if I have bad breath, if I'm too quick, too aggressive, too shy, there's a fine line, right? Like a narrow little sliver we got to get through. But once we break through, right? Because like what you're talking about,
then you have 7 babies. That's what happens.
7 children, man. Watch out. Be careful. But you're in. It's like bursting through the into outer space. Once you can get to that escape velocity, it's so easy.
Oh
you gotta be pretty bold for that 1 minute, right? Yeah. How do I do this no bid? Because not even 1 minute, right? That's a 10-second conversation. And then you've probably been shut down on some, but I bet most of the time they're like, whoa, wait a minute. You're playing hard to get, right? You're taking the prize off the table. You're taking the bat and ball and glove and going home. They're like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Well, here's the truth of the matter. When I was in staffing, I'm 7 for 8 on that. And the 8th said, I'll send you the form for the no bid. Okay. Okay. Well, the other 7, the person was trying to make a good decision for their company. And when something was pointed out that there may be an error here, there may have been more value to be created, that person's responsibility then is to explore that. So I baited them into an exploration, and they're like, okay, so what did we miss? What should we be thinking about? And once you get to that point, you put the deal at risk by challenging it. But did you really put the deal at risk? Your chances of winning were 5 to 7% at best. Yeah. So you put nothing at risk. You have nothing at risk. It's a bluebird. So you treat it like that. There's nothing at risk here, so I can just play. But if you're going to play, you might as well play to win.
Well, and people don't take into consideration the cost of bidding.
Yeah.
Right? There's lost opportunity costs. I worked at a tech company for many years, and man, they'd respond to everything, and it was all hands on deck. That we could have 12 people touch this thing. The man hours were just staggering. And it was a shot in the dark a lot of times, right? But their policy was that they would bid. And I was like, good grief, man. It's just
I'm okay with that, but as long as you make the phone call first and try to pull yourself out of the box. That's not even, if you're just going to respond without even trying to push a conversation. One of them that I pushed back on hard, the person called and said, we'd like you to respond to our RFP. And I said, you've been with the same company for 15 years. You measure your revenue in hundreds of billions and they measure theirs in billions. And you have no reason to leave. They're a good company.
Right.
And they said, well, actually, we're unhappy and we are considering leaving. Right. And I took another run at him and I said, well, you would never hire a boutique company with 40 million in sales after you've been working with billion-dollar companies in every segment of your business. And they said, well, actually, we're looking for somebody that's got greater care. We want better attention than we've gotten in the past. And I said, with all due respect, I apologize, but I don't know a single person at your company I've never had a single meeting with anyone. You've been locked down for 15 years. It would be criminal negligence for you to ever award us a bid without ever having met any single person from my company. How does that work? And he said, if I get you a meeting with the stakeholders making the decision, would you to fill out the RFP? And I said, 100%. And I got him in a room, and that was $2 million. But I had nothing at risk, right? There's nothing at risk. They're looking for somebody to help them. And if I push back and say I have ideas, then you get a chance to play. You might still lose, but you might still lose anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, it's kind of a form of the takeaway close, right? And a little bit of, I call it the going Columbo, like, why me? Like, I'm so confused here. What am I missing? And,
well, you also have to have enough self-respect to say, this isn't a deal.
Yeah.
It's not even an opportunity. They need 5 people to fill in the 5 columns that they have on their spreadsheet, and you're saying yes to them. So, when you recognize what it really is, you just need to have the confidence to say, I can create greater value than this. And basically, that's the premise of the book. I mean, who creates greater value wins. And if you start with strategic outcomes and you push back, then people have to deal with you that way. And they're like, oh, wait, this person might be different. Well, that's a starting point for the relationship.
But we chase these bluebirds because our pipeline is not full and prospecting is miserable. And at least we can show the boss, hey, I got this big RFP. Oh, man, this thing's looking real. They came to me to justify not doing the hard work of really going and get your own business, your own opportunities. So how do we overcome that? How do we keep a full pipeline?
The third chapter in the book is about the sequence for how you do that. And I think prospecting used to be, well, you pick up the phone and you call somebody. I still like that. I think it's a great way to do it. But we have so many tools available now. Prospecting is really a campaign. And so my recommendation in the book is you pick 60 dream clients. These are the companies that are going to absolutely resonate with your value proposition. They're going to be willing to pay for the value that you create. They're mature, partner-oriented, the ones that your customer or your competitor has on lockdown, but you want them and you're going to work on them over time. But it starts with saying, I'm going to have to pick up the phone and make a call, and I'm going to have to ask for a meeting. And if I don't get that person, I'm going to have to leave a voicemail where I tell them that I'm going to call them back, because I'm not expecting the client to call me back. That's not their responsibility. They're not pursuing me. I'm pursuing them. So I'm the one that's making the call. And I'm going to follow it up with an email and tell them I will try you back this time next week until I get enough of these stacked up that somebody answers the phone and says one of 2 things. Wes, go to hell. Stop bothering me. We're not a good prospect for you. Or listen, we're super busy. I'm really sorry. What are these 4 trends that you want to share with me? And what is this executive briefing that you're talking about? And if you have that kind of a pitch where you can say, Wes, I'd love to ask you for a 20-minute executive briefing where I can share with you what we think the most important trends are when it comes to automated CRM and how people generate revenue. And listen, even if there's not a next step, you're going to sit down with your team and you're going to go through this deck and some of the questions, because over the next 18 to 24 months, these changes are going to have an impact on all our businesses. What do you look like Thursday for a 20-minute executive briefing? And listen, I promise I'm not going to waste 1 minute of your time. That's a different pitch than, Wes, I'd love to stop by, introduce myself and my company, tell you a little bit about some of the customers that we work with that look like you, and then learn a little bit about your company. Now, that second pitch, the old school pitch, is like, so great. You're going to spend a lot of time talking about you. That should be delightful and interesting. Then you're going to talk about your company and your products. That should be fascinating discussion there. And then you're going to ask me about my business, because you didn't even do any research before you called me. So I'm a solid no on that. It's just, you make it easy to say no when there's no value prop in the prospecting. They have to hear that you have value that's important to them, or they're right to say no. Time is our only finite, non-renewable resource as human beings. You can get more money, you can get more stuff, but the time when it's gone, which is why we're stingy with it.
But our founder, man, he started it in a garage, just like Apple and HP. I mean, the story, the IP that we have, you need to hear this story. It's really good.
I think I just did. And it wasn't valuable for me. You know what? I had a great mentor who taught me. We had this 84-page binder. This is pre-PowerPoint, and we would walk in and we would share the binder. I would literally read the binder from cover to cover to prospects. And he happened to be on a call with me as I'm reading. I started on page 1. In 1940, William Olston started Olston Services. I was on page 7, and I looked over, and he's looking at me like, I'm going to stab both of your eyes out if you say another word. But I was undeterred, and I plowed through. And true story, you know how you have that meeting with your sales manager, you're on the curb walking to the car, and he said,
How do you think that went?
Yeah. I said, I think it went great. And he said, I think you should be brought up on charges. That woman's in a coma, and we're never going to recover her. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, nobody cares about us. Nobody cares about us. And I'm like, then why do we carry around this big binder? And he said, that's just for them to put behind their desk. And so when anybody asks them how they made this decision, they've got all the supporting documentation. He said, they only care about 2 or 3 things. And I said, what are those 2 or 3 things? He goes, I don't know. You have to figure that out. That's why we call it selling. They care about themselves. The product that they care about is their product. The company that they care about is their company. The customers that they care about are their customers. Right. And if you can make that shift and become other-oriented, selling gets a lot easier.
Yeah. Amen. Well, man, this has been awesome. So your new book, it is out, Eat Their Lunch. Where should we send people to get the book or learn more about you? Or
all right, for
where do
the
they
book,
go, man? Where do they go?
You go to Amazon.com for the book, unless you're buying it for your team. If you're buying it for a team, go to 800 CEO Read, because they're the best book people in the business and just good people selling books. So I would go there. You can also get it at Barnes & Noble. And some of them are nice enough to keep this book in stock for me. So I like BNN a lot. To find me, you go to thesalesblog.com. That's home base for me, where I've been publishing now. And I missed my anniversary. It was the 28th, so 9 years every day on thesalesblog.com. But I'll connect with you on LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever it makes sense.
9 years. Well, man, that's you're giving old Seth Godin a run for his money, huh?
I have a lot more words than he does. His posts are a lot shorter than mine, and I'm trying to model that because he says a lot in a very few words, and I say a little in a whole lot of words.
Hey, man, at least you're in the same arena. That's good competition to be listed in.
Whenever your name is mentioned next to his, and I'll just tell you, he put a link to my book in a blog post that he wrote about 2 months before the book came out. And it went to #1 in sales within 4 hours. So
wow,
that's the power of Seth.
Well, remind Seth that on your list of 4,000 favorite salespeople out there with the podcast that have had you on at least twice, I almost make that list. Okay,
you're on the list for sure.
All right, man. It's for the kids. It's not for me, man. It's for the kids, okay?
I think you better be doing everything for the kids. It's a lot of baby you got.
Everything and then some, baby.
Me too.
All right. Well, this will come out very soon, so we can say Happy New Year because this will be applicable. This is going to be the first one of the new year. So, Anthony Iannarino, man, thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me on. Good to see you.
Eating their lunch. Well, have a great new year. And now let's go enjoy the new year, huh?
Happy New Year. Kyle, too. Don't forget Kyle.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony.
Good old Kyle. All right, everybody. Y'all go sell something.
Thanks, man. That was great.
Yes, that was great, wasn't it? Even if I say so myself. I figured I'd leave that little last nugget in before I found the stop record button. I hope you got a lot. I hope you got a lot out of that. You know what? When you drink cold stuff, I'm drinking some cold iced tea. I just finished it, actually, which reminds me I need some more. My wife's a big tea drinker. But when you drink something cold, it actually kind of freezes up your tongue, your throat, your mouth. It's harder to enunciate. And I was just doing that. So I hope you learned a lot out of that. Anthony is a good dude. He knows his stuff. I have links to everything we talked about, all of the books. I linked to a bunch of books, including his sales blog, his outbound program, a ton of stuff. So make sure and visit the website, look up his interview, and go back and check out his other episode as well. Had him on a couple years ago. But a great guy, a lot of content. Do not be afraid of the phone. Embrace the phone. I love he talked about that, especially in a B2B environment. All for value. Keep things short. You know, I've had 15 and 25-minute meetings now. That's been my standard for years. I've been shortening things up. Busy people make decisions quickly. They don't need all the details, okay? At least they don't need them in an 84-page brochure. Cut to the chase. Add value. If they have questions, they'll stick around. They'll extend the meeting. Okay, so I love how he talks about getting in there, right? Offer value. Don't waste their time. Build the trust, the caring, listen. Man, we got into baby boomers and how things are changing, how you're not different, how your prospects aren't different. A lot of things going on here. How do you stay on top of all that? How do you practice, drill, and rehearse? How do you find the discipline to stay at it? It's hard when you're alone. You know, people say, "Oh, I want to be in sales because I'm good with people." If you're good with people, be in HR. Okay, go teach kindergarten. If you're in sales, there's a lot of alone time, a lot of windshield time on your own. So get in a program, a mastermind, a coaching program. Hire a coach, a mentor. I'm telling you, it's what made the difference for me. Anthony admits the same. Everyone I have on works with multiple mentors. I've got Craig Ballantyne coming up on the next episode. Super successful. I think he said in his interview, I don't know if he was on the interview or afterwards when we weren't recording, but he's got multiple mentors. He's in multiple masterminds and people helping him on different aspects of his business, even though he's super successful. Probably that's why he's super successful. So invest in yourself. Stop subscribing to all these things. Stop getting in all the free trials. Okay, stop going to conferences where you're not going to get anything done. Find people that you resonate with and stick with them until you suck every bit of knowledge out of their brain, and then go find someone else. That's fine. Okay, you don't have to stay with the same sales coach, business coach, marketing coach, whatever coach forever. But you may stay with them for a while. But invest in yourself, okay? Find someone that's going to hold you accountable. Find a community that you resonate with. Stick with them and engage, all right? That's why I offer the Make Every Sale program. It's the most affordable way to get literally daily help from me, okay? People ask questions in the group, and I'm monitoring it. I'll stop and make a video for you. It's what I like doing, is helping salespeople sell, all right? So invest in yourself, makeeverysale.com. Go check it out. And as always, thank you for listening. Please leave a review. You'd be surprised how few people leave reviews, how few people give me feedback and input. You know, you can do it through theimplementors.com, the free group, on my Facebook page. Send me an email. It's fine. Let me know. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if you'd like me to interview someone else, if you want me to review a book, whatever. Okay? Let me know you're out there. Now go sell something.